Israel is working and fighting in accordance with its rights to defend its citizens following an unprecedented massacre of people that were killed, whether they were elderlies, Holocaust survivors, men, women, babies in their cribs.
There are those who think that this is a crime against humanity. People
women
think that
and girls
Israel's
and burned
response.
alive. I think that we've had more than our fair share of suffering, and we are waging war, so Hamas will not be able to inflict such horrors and pain on Israel and on Palestinians, because it is an enemy of both of us.
There are those who think that this is no longer a war with Hamas. This is crime against humanity. This is Israel's move to cleanse the area of the minority Muslim group there. What do you say to those people?
I would say that they are absolutely wrong. And it is shame that Hamas is operating in a way that is maneuvering the international media to discuss the issue of the casualties instead of discussing the issue of the Hamas arming and operating within human shields, stealing fuel and provisions from their own people to their military use. Actually, you know, if they would allow those civilians to find shelter in those tunnels, people may be safe, but they will not allow anyone to use the tunnels.
You know, it's just concerning to me that Israel wouldn't want to take any responsibility for the civilians who are being killed because of your onslaught on Palestine.
No, they are being killed because we are operating to defend our people, and Hamas is not allowing them to clear to a safe area. Whose blood is it? Is it on our hands or Hamas hands?
Despite what you're saying, we know 3 leading human rights organizations based in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip have filed a lawsuit at the International Criminal Court. They're asking that Israel be investigated for apartheid and genocide. How is Israel processing this?
Well, this is an absurd. This is an absurd where we have not even finalized the process of identifying the bodies that were mutilated and burned without being able to recognize. We have not been able to bury our dead, and already
do you think
some
Israel's
elements of
response to the onslaught is disproportionate?
Let's talk about proportionality. When you talk about proportionality, do you mean that in the way that it is described by the laws of armed conflict? People do not understand the issue of proportionality. It is not about the number of people killed in each side. You know that in World War II, there were about 8 million Germans killed in Nazi Germany and 400,000 Americans. So 20 times more number of Germans killed. Can anyone say that United States fought a war that was wrong? Can anyone say that United States should have been stopped in fighting Nazi Germany? Or people should understand the essence of fighting a genocidal, barbaric entity that is continuously hurting and trying to eradicate and eliminate Israel totally, drinking from the same well as ISIS, as Al-Qaeda. And who will stop it? Who will fight it? How can you reach any kind of understanding with such an entity that care for nothing and no one until they're able to implement their agenda?
Right. So despite Hamas being in the Gaza Strip, we know that Israel is also, conducting some bombardment in the West Bank. Why is that? Why are you on an onslaught also on the West Bank side?
There are terrorist cells in the West Bank, and we are fighting against them because they are committing terrorist acts or trying to commit terrorist attacks against Israel.
And
but we are not bombarding.
These are
These are Hamas and other extreme Islamic groups such as the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which operates both in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, and Israel is defending itself.
It would seem Israel is at war with all of its Islamic neighbors.
Isn't it vice versa, that all these Islamic neighbors should eventually now acknowledge, after 75 years of Israel existence, it is high time that they understand and acknowledge Israel's right to existence, because this is what they're fighting. They're fighting our right to exist.
Is it not Israel that first occupied the West Bank, which Israel knows very well it shouldn't be?
Israel, first of all, is not occupying the West Bank. Israel is in control of the West Bank, but in 1948, the State of Israel was established. What happened in 1948? Who was in control of the West Bank?
The control of the West Bank was in the hands of international waters, was it not?
No. In 1948, after the War of Independence, Israel declared independence, and we became a state, acknowledged and recognized by the UN. At the same time, the territories that were designated by a UN resolution to become an Arab or Palestinian state, those territories, West Bank and Gaza Strip, were occupied, taken over and occupied by neighboring countries. West Bank was under Jordanian occupation from 1948 to 1967. The West Bank, we had a war in 1967, and we pushed the Jordanians out. We never annexed the West Bank, and it is under Israeli security control, but we are not occupiers. And if a claim of occupying...
Is that not what is happening in the West Bank now? The fact that Israel is illegally occupying it, the UN has said time without number that occupation is illegal.
We're saying that these territories, the status is disputed because actually they never belonged to an independent state of Palestinians. But at the same time, we have to focus that this fight that we have with Hamas, we should not be diverted from this. Hamas is not part of the equation. Hamas is not about establishing a Palestinian state. Hamas is about destroying the state of Israel. They're not fighting for Palestinian rights. They're fighting to have as many Palestinians killed. Do you think that
Israel is living up to the expectation of the declaration that brought them to the Palestinian area?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I'm asking, is Israel living up to the declaration, the Balfour Declaration that brought the Jewish people who were being persecuted at the time to the Palestinian area?
The Jews in diaspora were there in diaspora for 2,000 years. And for 2,000 years, they yearned and prayed every day to go back to their homeland. At the turn of the 19th century, Jews started returning to their homeland, to Israel.
Well, Jews didn't just start returning. It was an agreement
it was
from the British.
It was decades before this Balfour Declaration was given.
Okay.
Decades before that, Jews started returning to their homeland, inspired by nationalistic movements.
Was there a homeland, or that homeland was created out of the Balfour Declaration? It wasn't a homeland in the Ottoman Empire for Jewish people, was there?
No, there was not. There was constant occupation of that territory, but by different empires throughout the 2 millennia, be it the Greek and the Roman, and later on the Mamluk and the Ottoman eventually, and the Turk. And then it was the Turkish Empire was dismantled at the end of World War I, and the territory of Israel was given to the British to control until the people of the region could establish independent states.
Well, when, and I'm going to read from that letter from Arthur Balfour during that declaration in 1970. This is exactly what the letter says. It says that His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object. it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. Right now, you're not doing that. Israel
right
isn't
now,
doing that.
we are more than 100 years past that time, and right now, we are fighting a war against an ISIS-like entity, terror entity, that has nothing to do with Palestinian rights, has nothing to do with 2 states for 2 people, has nothing to do with all that. This entity is a terror entity, and it has to be destroyed in order for our region to have any kind of future. And beyond that, it needs to be destroyed so other such entities, be them in the Middle East, be them in Africa, in the Sahel, be them anywhere around the world, such entities that are of extreme Islam will see that the international community, allow me please to finish, they will see that the international community is supporting a fight of humanity against inhumanity, of light against darkness.
Humanity being Israel and
inhumanity being an entity that sends its terrorists
what do you think the Palestinian civilians will be saying?
Systematically rape and burn alive women and girls that are holding 240 hostages, some of them babies. We're talking about 10 of these hostages under the age of 5. What kind of entity, how would you describe them?
Your Excellency, the way you're describing Hamas's onslaught, or rather attack on October 7th,
carnage. I think the word is carnage.
You know, that description also goes for what is happening in Palestine at the moment at the hands of Israel's military, wouldn't you say? Because the baby, talk to me about this base, because the babies of Israel are not more important than the babies of Palestine, and over 4,000 of them have died. And you're telling me, dumb the consequences because you want to go after Hamas?
No, I'm saying that Hamas should be asked these questions. Why do you not protect your babies? Not Israel, that is defending its citizens and doing its utmost to defend the Palestinian civilians, should not be asked these questions, but rather Hamas should be asked these questions. Why don't you do the minimal thing to protect your civilians, but rather have them killed or injured and hurt in a war that is justified and completely justifiable?
So I mean, while Israel...
But these questions are not addressed to Hamas. Hamas is manipulating the media